All right, welcome back. Today we are going to be going over Seneca's letters. We're on letter 68 today. It's on wisdom and retirement. So let's jump right into this here. All right. He starts off by saying, I fall in with your plan. Retire and conceal yourself in repose. But at the same time, conceal your retirement also. In doing this, you may be sure that you'll be following the examples of the Stoics, if not their precept, but you will be acting according to their precept also. You will thus satisfy both yourself and any Stoic you please. So he's saying here that, look, I agree with your plan of retirement and concealing yourself in retirement. Okay. He's been talking about this for a while. And he's saying that if you do this, you're going to be able to do what you want. And it also fits with the Stoic philosophy, what we think is correct. Right. In verse 2, he says, we Stoics do not urge men to take a public life in every case, or at all times, or without any qualification. Besides, when we have assigned to our wise man that field of public life which is worthy of him, in other words, the universe, then he is not apart from the public life, even if he withdraws. Nay, perhaps he has abandoned only one little corner thereof, and has passed over into greater and wider regions. And when he has been set in the heavens, he understands how lowly the place in which he sat when he mounted the curule chair or the judgment seat. Lay to his heart that the wise man is never more active in affairs than when things divine as well as things human have come within his ken. Okay, so what he's saying here is essentially that it's not that you have to be out in the public in some kind of real public position, but your place in the universe. You being a philosopher, you even when you withdraw, you're still there. You're still out there because you're studying philosophy. You're expounding upon these ideas. You're actually in your place when you're considering the divine and the human at the same time. This is where you really belong. All right. Now he says, now I return to the advice which I set out to give you, that you keep your retirement in the background. There is no need to fasten a placard upon yourself with the words philosopher and quietist. Give your purpose some other name. Call it ill health and bodily weakness or mere laziness. To boast of our retirement is but idle self-seeking. So this is an interesting thing here. He's essentially saying that don't even make a big deal of this retirement. Okay, you don't need to put a placard up that says philosopher and quietist, right? Like, don't draw attention to yourself. Don't do that. Instead, say you have ill health or bodily weakness, or that you're just lazy. Okay, to boast of retirement is self-seeking. He's saying so. He's really giving this advice to be modest here and to be like, okay, just go and do the thing. Like, the purpose is not to have people be like, oh wow, you retired and you're this philosopher. Instead, it's just to actually do the stuff. And so if you need to say it, if you need to prop yourself up, then it's going to be self-seeking. Certain animals hide themselves from discovery by confusing the marks of their footprints in the neighborhood of their lairs. You should do the same. Otherwise, there will always be someone dogging your footsteps. Many men pass by that which is visible and peer after the things hidden and concealed. A locked room invites the thief. Things which lie in the open appear cheap. The housebreaker passes by that which is exposed to view. This is the way of the world and the way of all ignorant men. They crave to burst in upon hidden things. It is therefore best not to vaunt one's retirement. So what he's saying here is he's saying, look, if you say you're going to retire and you do this, then people like to go and find stuff that they're not supposed to find. They want to go out. They're going to find you. They're going to come out and people are going to come after you and they're going to bother you, right? So don't make a big deal of it. Just say you're sick or whatever, you're lazy or weak, and then you can just have peace and you can actually retire, right? If that's what your actual goal is. In verse 5, he says, it is, however, a sort of vaunting to make too much of one's concealment and of one's withdrawal from the sight of men. So and so has gone into his retreat at Tarentum. That other man has shut himself at Naples. This third person for many years has not crossed the threshold of his own house. To advertise one's retirement is to collect a crowd. So the more that you talk about this, the more that people are going to talk about you, and the more that you're going to just make a spectacle of this. That's not the point, right? When you withdraw from the world, your business is to talk with yourself, not to have men talk about you, but what shall you talk about? Do Just what people are fond of doing when they talk about their neighbors. Speak ill of yourself when by yourself. Then you'll become accustomed both to speak and hear the truth. Above all, however, ponder that which you come to feel is your greatest weakness. So he's saying here that the point is to talk to yourself, not to have people talk about you, right? Like we talked about before. But what should you say to yourself? Well, you should speak ill of yourself. What does he mean by this? He says that just the truth, like what is really going on? What is your greatest weakness? Don't prop yourself up. Don't do what we normally do, right? And again, I'm not talking about getting down on yourself and beating yourself up. I'm talking about just taking an honest assessment, right? What are you doing right now? Who are you right now, right? Have you taken an honest assessment? We should all do this when we're talking to ourselves. Each man knows the best defects of his own body, and so one relieves his stomach by vomiting. Another props it up by frequent eating. Another drains and purges his body by periodic fasting. Those whose feet are visited by pain abstain either from wine or from the bath. In general, men who are careless in other respects go out of their way to relieve the disease which frequently afflicts them. So it is with our souls. There are in them certain parts which are, so to speak, on the sick list, and to these parts the cure must be applied. So he's saying, look, with your body, you know what your weaknesses are, you know what things you need to work on, and you have remedies for these things. So it is the same with the soul. There are some sick parts, there's some things that you need to actually start working on, and so work on those things. That's the whole point of this retirement. What then am I myself doing with my leisure? I'm trying to cure my own sores. If I were to show you a swollen foot or an inflamed hand or some shriveled sinews in a withered leg, you would permit me to lie quiet in one place and to apply lotions to the diseased member. But my trouble is greater than any of these. I cannot show it to you. The abscess or the ulcer is deep within my breast. Pray, do not commend me. Do not say, what a great man. He has learned to despise all things, condemning the madness of man's life. He has made his escape. I have condemned nothing except myself. So he's saying that, look, I have issues. You're asking me what I'm doing with my retirement. It's like if I was physically ill, had some sores and stuff, you would say, oh yeah, take a break. Like, make sure you take care of this stuff. This is what he's doing. He's saying you can't see the injuries that I have, but it's deep within my soul. I have problems. I'm working on those problems. I'm trying to cure those issues within myself. That's what I'm working on. There's no reason why you should desire to come to me for the sake of making progress. You're mistaken if you think that you will get any assistance from this quarter. It is not a physician that dwells here, but a sick man. I would rather have you say, on leaving my presence, I used to think him a happy man and a learned one, and I had pricked up my ears to hear him, but I have been defrauded. I have seen nothing, heard nothing, which I craved and which I came back to hear. If you feel thus and speak thus, some progress has been made. I prefer you to pardon rather than envy my retirement. So again, Seneca is indicating that he's doing this for the right reasons, and he's saying that you should be doing these for the right reasons. He's saying, don't come here and think that you're going to get some crazy wisdom, or that, I'm some genius, or, instead, I want you to come here and then be like, oh, wow, he's worse than I thought. And he's saying that is what he's trying to convey, because if he's being honest and authentic, that's how it will come across. And it's the same thing with us, right? So we're always often trying to impress people by hiding our weaknesses and our defects, which I'm not saying that you should just tell people bad things about you, but at the same time, you should be honest and you should be authentic. And if you're really working on fixing the issues, then you are going to leave them bare. You cannot just hide them and sweep them under the rug and then think that they're going to go away. When you say, is it retirement, Seneca, that you are recommending to me? You will soon be falling back upon the maxims of Epicurus. I do recommend retirement to you, but only that you may use it for greater and more beautiful activities than those you have resigned to knock at the haughty doors of the influential, to make alphabetical lists of childless old men, to wield the highest authority in public life. This kind of power exposes you to hatred, is short-lived, and if you rate it at its true value, it's tawdry. So he's saying, yeah, retire, man. Okay, because the stuff that you're doing right now in your life, it's really, what is the purpose of it? There's no purpose. Like, you're making lists, you're doing this stuff, you're doing this administrative activities, but there's no purpose to this. Okay. One man shall be far ahead of me as regards in his influence in public life, another in salary as an army officer and in the position which results from this, another in the throng of his clients. But it is worthwhile to be outdone by all these men, provided that I myself can outdo fortune. And I am no match for her in the throng. She has the greater backing. So he's saying that, look, yeah, all these people can be better than you, and that's fine. There's no point in trying to be better than them as long as you can do one thing, which is to outdo fortune, right? Which means that you don't allow that effect to affect you, right? And he's saying that when you're in the crowd, when you're out there in the bustle, she has a great advantage on you. You can't do that. You have to retire. You have to seclude yourself in order to beat fortune. Would that in earlier days you had been minded to follow this purpose. Would that we were not discussing the happy life in plain view of death. But even now, let us have no delay, for we can take the word of experience, which tells us that there are many superfluous and hostile things. For this we should long since have taken the word of reason. So he's saying, yeah, better to start late than never, right? Yeah, we should have done this earlier. You should have learned these lessons earlier. We're getting closer to death, but hey, it doesn't matter because we're doing it now, and that's what's important, and you should be on this path now. Let us do what men are wont to do when they are late in setting forth and wish to make up for lost time by increasing their speed. Let us ply the spur. Our time of life is the best possible for these pursuits, for the period of boiling and foaming is now past. The faults were uncontrolled, and the fierce heat of youth are now weakened. The first fierce heat of youth are now weakened, and but little further effort is needed to extinguish them. So he's saying, okay, well, now's a good time, right? Because you're not so young anymore. We're not so young anymore. And hey, it's actually kind of a benefit. It makes things easier, right? So this is a good time, but we need to pick up the speed. We need to pick up the pace now because we've lost some time here. And he says, and when you ask, will that profit you, which you do not learn until your departure, and how will it profit you? Precisely in this way, that I shall depart a better man. You need not think, however, that any time of life is more fitted to the attainment of sound mind than that which has gained victory over itself by many trials and long and often and oft repeated regret for past mistakes, and its passions assuaged, has reached a state of health. This is indeed the time to have acquired this good. He who has attained wisdom in his old age has attained it by his years. Farewell. So, breaking this down a little bit, what is he saying here? Okay. He's saying, well, okay. And when you ask, will that profit you, which you do not learn until your departure? Okay. So, is it really going to matter to figure this stuff out now? Okay. And how will it profit you? Okay. And he says, okay, this is how it will. I'm going to depart a better man. All right. You don't have to think that any time of life is more fitted to attain a sound mind than this particular time, which he says, which has gained victory over itself by many trials and by long and oft repeated regret for past mistakes. So he's saying there's no better time to get a sound mind than after you've been through the shit, been through life, been through trials. Okay. All right. And you've already had your passions assuaged. So you've already, gotten this stuff out of your system and reached a state of health. This is a time to do it, right? After you've dealt with the youth, after you've dealt with all these things. And I think this is just an important thing to consider is that, you're going to have to go through a lot of trials. You're going to have to go through a lot of stuff in life in order to get to a point where you can actually accept the Stoic philosophy and start to say, okay, yeah, let me resign myself to this because this makes more sense. When you're still eager and still have these views of the world that you can control fortune and fate and you can make your way and you don't have to worry about being immune to fortune and fate, then you're not really thinking about this and you're not ready. So, the more that you can tackle these things and become ready, the better it is.